Chapter 12. Long Distance Runner.
The Gang of Three, 1971 to 1973.
Elementary school felt like a blur for me. I navigated those years in a fog, often unsure about what was unfolding around me. In 1967, during the second year of the Cultural Revolution, I began mimicking the older kids by using curse words. It felt cool. All the boys spoke that way. In every 3 sentences, one had to include an insult, most of which degraded women. At 8 years old, I did not understand these words, but repeated them. One day, while playing in the alley outside my grandmother's house, I overheard a senior boy from across the street unleashing a vile torrent of curses at someone next door. His words poured out like sewage, sickening and relentless. I stood frozen, stunned by his venom. In that moment, something clicked. I realized his words weren't just directed at that one person. He was insulting all women. Didn't that include my mother, my sister? I roamed the alley alone for quite some time, grappling with my thoughts. Did I want to become that type of person? Did I want to utter words that stripped away dignity and demeaned others? The notion disturbed me. In that moment, I resolved that I would never curse again. Not ever. Breaking the habit was challenging. I faced slip-ups, struggles, and moments of temptation, yet I remained committed. Eventually, I achieved my goal. In retrospect, that moment appears insignificant, even trivial. However, it was a pivotal time and invisible boundary I established for myself, influencing who I would become. Even during my childhood, I discovered myself wondering, where do these bursts of morality and determination originate? How do they spark within our minds? And how do they influence our actions and define our identities? That wasn't the only bad habit I left behind. In the 3rd grade, at the age of 10, I experimented with smoking. The older boys at school and my neighborhood friends portrayed it as rebellious and masculine. However, when I first snuck a cigarette at home, I was overwhelmed by how foolish it was. The harshness in my throat, the terrible taste, and the lingering odor, none of it was enjoyable at all. The absurdity of hiding like a criminal also added to my dislike. I pictured what would happen if my father caught me, and that thought alone convinced me to quit smoking for good. Just 1 cigarette, and that was it. However, while following those short forays into rebellion, I immersed myself in another pursuit: reading. Although the Cultural Revolution had disrupted the education system, rendering classrooms ineffective and teachers impotent, it inadvertently granted me ample time to read. I delved into literature voraciously, consuming books as others would indulge in a meal with an insatiable appetite for knowledge. Before long, my classmates nicknamed me with great relish. Some regarded me as an eccentric, while others saw me as a scholar. Regardless, it was clear that the best way to win my favor was by lending me a book. By 6th grade, a change occurred that transformed my world experience. One day after class, Leng Yunji casually asked me,
"Would you like to borrow a book?"
I was astonished and excited. Yet it wasn't the book that truly caught me off guard. It was him. Leng Yunji was my classmate, but he was no ordinary classmate. An elite athlete in Huangpu District, Shanghai's most populous area, he excelled as a sprinting champion, a long-distance runner, and a basketball star, someone most students admired from afar. While not a troublemaker, he exuded a natural confidence that suggested superiority. Some students feared him, while others wished to emulate him. However, no one considered him an equal. Now he was presenting me with a book. I had always found Leng Yunjie fascinating. There was an admirable toughness and raw physical strength within him that I felt I lacked. I didn't possess athletic skills, a sense of competitiveness, or endurance. I was more bookish, sensitive, and slightly fragile. Despite this, I had always yearned to be his friend and to gain a deeper understanding of his world. Suddenly, he extended an olive branch. I started visiting Leng's home, and we became good friends. Contrary to his reputation, he was unexpectedly reserved, possessing a direct thought process. He wasn't one to speak unnecessarily. His focus was on action. At one point, I inquired,
"Do you receive any specialized training for running?"
He didn't respond directly. Instead, he glanced at me for a while and then suggested,
How about joining us for a run?
without any additional explanation, he introduced me to long-distance running. The following morning at 5:30 a.m., Leng and a few others arrived in my alley, calling for me. We set off together along Renmin Road, completing a loop around the historic old city wall of Shanghai, which measures roughly 5,000 meters per lap. I barely finished. I was breathless and sweaty by the end, and my legs felt like lead. Yet, Leng didn't tease me. He jogged alongside me, motivating and reminding me to find my rhythm. I was astonished. Here was a champion, maintaining my slow pace, displaying patience rather than annoyance. That morning transformed everything. I continued running with Leng. Word of our running spread. If I, the studious old Yang, could start running, others could too. Our group expanded. At its height, over 10 classmates joined us for morning runs. However, despite the growing numbers, Leng and I remained the central figures. Each morning, without exception, he and the others assembled outside my door, shouting,
"Old Yang, time for us to run."
Their voices disrupted the stillness of Yongsheng Road. Eventually, my mother took notice. One day, she asked me,
"Are they referring to you as Old Yang?"
I nodded. She frowned.
"Everyone used to call your father Little Yang. How can you be Old Yang? Tell them not to call you that. You are only 13.
I confided in my classmates, a bit embarrassed. My friends didn't mind at all. Instead, they began calling me with quirky bird sounds and various odd noises. We continued to run through rain, heat, and the biting cold of winter snow. Some mornings, I would lie in bed, hearing the wind howl outside, dreading the thought of leaving my cozy blankets. But then I'd picture Leng calling out and pushing myself up, shivering as I got dressed, reassured that once we began running, the chill would disappear. Most of our group ultimately fell away, yet Leng and I persevered. He never lost faith in me, and I refused to give up. I wasn't inherently talented like Leng, but that wasn't the crux. I discovered something far more valuable: discipline, endurance, and resilience. Above all, I uncovered the toughness I had been seeking all along. Long-distance running is perhaps the simplest type of physical exercise, yet its simplicity makes it one of the hardest to maintain. It demands no special equipment or inherent talent, just sheer willpower. This revelation surprised me. Previously, I had thought that sports relied solely on physical ability. However, I came to understand that talent alone was insufficient. It was the unwavering dedication and determination to persevere that ultimately brought success. I immersed myself in our daily runs, drawn not only by the physical challenge, but also by the rhythm, discipline, and purpose they brought. I observed Leng intently. His undeniable passion for sprinting and competition captivated me. He relished the sensation of speed, the thrill of exceeding his limits, and the joy of victory. His determination inspired me, enhancing my perspective as my body became stronger. He turned into my silent mentor, demonstrating lessons more profound than any spoken words could convey. In less than a year, I nearly caught up to him in long-distance running. I observed every aspect of his routine: warming up, protecting my joints, managing my breathing, controlling my stride, conserving energy, and timing my final sprint to win. We motivated each other, racing through Shanghai's dimly lit streets, chasing trams, bicycles, and even buses, anything quicker than us. Each morning we ran until we were soaked in sweat, welcoming the sunrise with burning lungs and a feeling of achievement. Leng and I became inseparable. We were bros. However, this new brotherhood brought unforeseen outcomes. Some of my old friends, such as Tang, my dependable book supplier, started to pull away from me. I was no longer spending as much time with them, which made them feel neglected. Meanwhile, another of Leng's close friends, Zhang, entered our running group. He was a bit rough around the edges, brash, and somewhat combative. Although I didn't like him that much, the three of us formed a close-knit trio. Before long, our classmates named us the Gang of Three. It wasn't meant as a compliment. To them, we appeared like an exclusive Group 2 defiant athletes and one studious bookworm, an unusual and somewhat daunting combination. Even the teachers felt uneasy around us. One day, I inadvertently shattered a classroom window. Ms. Li, my favorite Chinese teacher, took me aside and inquired quietly,
"How did you end up with Leng and Zhang? It seems like a gang."
There was no need for her to elaborate on this. Her voice bore a hint of disappointment and sadness. She had always treated me with kindness, and I sensed she recognized my potential that, in her view, I might now be squandering. Yet I valued this friendship greatly. Following my father's death and enduring years of feeling helpless amid the turmoil of the Cultural Revolution, I had finally discovered something that empowered me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just an observer, I was a participant. The Cultural Revolution created an environment marked by fear, oppression, and uncertainty. People feared speaking, acting, or standing up for themselves. I had witnessed too many individuals being bullied and crushed by the system, feeling helpless to resist. However, with our Gang of Three, I felt a new strength emerging from our unity. Being part of a group was far preferable to standing alone. Leng hadn't become my friend solely because of our love for running. He had his own motives. He required assistance with his studies. For me, it was a simple exchange. I tutored him and aided him with his homework. Leng was a natural athlete, not an academic, and it was obvious to everyone that his rapid progress in school was unusual. I gained far more from him than he did from me. I started viewing life as a long-distance race with both a starting and a finish line, a clear destination to aim for. You can establish your own objectives, choosing your speed and the rewards you want to achieve. Throughout much of my childhood, I felt as though life unfolded without my influence, as if it were something I couldn't control. However, running changed my perspective. Thus, my high school adventure began.